The province of High Rock is located in the northwestern corner of Tamriel. It occupies the entire High Rock Peninsula and stretches east all the way to the Druadak Mountains, which form a natural border with Skyrim. High Rock is also bordered by Hammerfell across the Iliac Bay and through Bank Korai Pass, as the Biosei River marks the borderline. The peninsula is surrounded by water, the uneasy waters of Sea of Ghosts in the north, Etheric Ocean with remains of Yokuda in the west, and Iliac Bay in the south. Islands of Balfira, Bethany and the Sistris are also part of the province. High Rock itself has a few distinct regions: Glenumbra, Rivenspire, Stormhaven and Hrothgar. Located on the southwest of High Rock, the Glenumbra takes up the tip of peninsula. Being surrounded by water, the climate is damp, causing mosses and ferns to grow abundant. Most of the region is densely forested. Oaks, birches and ash grow thick and vast. The proximity of water results in the weather often being cloudy or raining. The wolves and bears stalk the dreary woods, seeking prey. On the rare occasion that the sun does come out, the gloomy forest becomes serene and beautiful. Leaves cast shadows dancing with the wind. Dew glistens on the tree bark and mosses. Of course, in such humid environment, fungi grow aplenty. Not counting the seaside cliffs, the land of Glenumbra is uneven, but relatively flat, but the more north you go, the more elevated the land becomes. In the center of region, the forest of Dania gave way to the Cambrai Hills. Here the fog coming from over the sea often blankets the area, and further north the Kingsguard Mountains separate Glenumbra from Rivenspire. Harpies like to settle in these craggy places, and various zoanthropes roam the land, especially werewolves and werebores, while spriggans guard the trees and groves. Rivenspire is located on the northern part of High Rock. The Kingsguard mountain range separates it from the regions of Glenumbra and Stormhaven. Being exposed to the colder and harsher Sea of Ghosts rather than Etheric Ocean, its climate is chilly and dry, and crops do not grow so well in the rocky soil. Horkers rest on the beaches of Borealis coast, while wind howls through the central moors. Giant bats and spiders prey on travelers, and many unfortunate souls roam these lowlands as a race. Stormhaven is the central part of High Rock. It stretches from Kingsguard Mountains to Hrothgarian Mountains, and Biolsey River marks its eastern border. The climate of Stormhaven is greatly influenced by the currents of Iliac Bay and warm winds blowing from the south. As such, the weather is mild and pleasant. Sunlight floods the rolling hills, meadows, farmlands and orchards. Fertile soil allows for bountiful harvests, and so most of the forests were cleared to make room for crops. Calm waters of Iliac Bay provide plenty of fish as well as reliable routes for trade. Hrothgar is the northeastern region in High Rock. Its lands consist of highlands given way to snowy hills and craggy bluffs of Druadak Mountains. The region is quite frigid due to the currents and weather of the briny Sea of Ghosts as well as the altitude. As such, horkers roaming the murky waters and ice flows are easy targets for experienced trappers. The snowy highlands also are inhabited by the usual wolves and bears, but also saber cats and mammoths are common in the region. An animal unique to the Hrothgarian Mountains are the Eschateers. Those six-legged mammals are quite fascinating. Their massive bodies already limit the number of potential predators capable of bringing one down, and for defense they grow tusks and bony crests on their heads. Their 6 legs end in point, bony hoofs, preventing frostbite on their limbs as they traverse the snowy drifts. The lower parts of Hrothgar are tundra where thawing ice and snow turns into streams. A receding permafrost allows short yellow grasses to grow. Mount Sorrow is Hrothgar's tallest peak, has spiritual significance to Orsimer tribes that inhabit the area. Aelid ruins can be found in the province, as well as several Dwemer ones too. In Hrothgar, ancient and more modern ruins of Orsinium can be found, and remains of Druidic settlements and megaliths can be found across all of the province. In modern times, there are 8 major cities in High Rock. I am not including Orsinium among them, for it is independent of the rest of High Rock, and it is so culturally distinct that it deserves its own discussion. Many of these cities were founded in ages past, their early history long lost. They often changed hands from king to upstart, from upstart to warlord, in the order of age, and it is my own speculation they are Farun, Shornhelm, Camlorn, Daggerfall, Wayrest, Northpoint, Evermore, and Johanna. Nearly all of these cities were established by Nords, venturing past the mountains to raid and expand their empire. Farun was founded sometime in early First Era and has always served as a port city. As it grew, it attracted many of Orsimer who lived in the snowy hills after the First Orsinium was destroyed. By the time of Second Era, Farun was renamed Farun after the Orcish clan that occupied it. I do not know whether this was slow and gradual taking of the city by orcs, or did they violently drive the Nordic and Brittonic dwellers away. Perhaps it was latter, as the city was infamous among the orcs who often found themselves unwilling residents to the Farun's complex prison. Either way, the Orsimer occupying the town were devout Malakath worshippers, and have constructed a shrine to his name in the cavern below the city, probably attracting many orcs on pilgrimages to the sacred site to seek guidance from their patron god. Eventually, Farun became home to Archivists of Malakath, a sect of orcs in possession of a scroll allegedly containing Malakath's own words. After the Second Orsinium fell and the discord spread among the orcish clans, Farun returned to the Bretons and became Farun instead. Shornhelm was founded around the same time as Farun. Given its location, it was probably constructed as a defensive camp by early Nords. Shornhelm was built in the central Rivenspire range of Corallian mountains. The back then outpost, and now city, is difficult to approach, let alone lay siege to. The terrain is difficult to traverse, full of escarpments, ravines and rough moors. Scarcity of trees means any siege equipment would have to be brought in, while lack of large game means invading army would be quite famished. Due to that, the city was rarely attacked, as any warlord or bandit chieftain worth his salt knew the odds. And so, over the ages, Shornhelm grew and flourished unbothered. Caravans and merchants passing through to and from Northpoint to avoid the stormy northern seas, travelers and adventurers and questing knights seeking respite from the elements, all found shelter in Shornhelm. While the city was safe from outside threats, it was not safe from within. Plague and disease were common within the walls, and the biggest menace to the population were the tyrant nobles, filling their coffers with peasants' lives. To protect from illness, the sick were exiled out of the city into the nearby ravine, the Fevered Mews. The city's name, I guess, comes from the Nordic warrior who first set the camp, which eventually grew into a city. Said fighter's sobriquet was probably Shor's Helmet, which gave the name to the settlement and over time got twisted into Shornhelm. Then Camlorn, the Jewel of the West, was also founded by Nords while they occupied these lands in the early First Era. It is located in northern part of Glenumbra among the Cambrian hills. The city rose to prominence due to trade, as shipments would rather be moved by land deeper into Tamriel, avoiding the dangerous region of Rivenspire, and the Iliac Bay often is teeming with pirates. Camlorn is a well-defensible city, built on a hill approachable from only one direction. It is divided into districts, each guarded by a gatehouse, allowing defenders to keep fighting even if the main wall was breached. As such, brute force would prove ineffective. However, Camlorn was still susceptible to infiltration and sabotage. Trade brought a measure of wealth to the city, and so its citizens considered themselves somewhat of an aristocracy or nobility. Despite their high opinions, they tend not to be haughty, and welcome newcomers, attracting many artists, troubadours, actors and dancers. Having dealt extensively with zoanthropes from nearby forests of Dania, they are suspicious of outsiders, and the guards will watch you closely. Daggerfall. Once again founded by Nordic invaders in the First Era, legend has it that one warlord threw a dagger and declared wherever it lands he will build a city. Due to its location, the fleet stationed in Daggerfall can blockade the Iliac Bay if desired, leading to, at best, competition, or at worst, animosity with the city of Sentinel. To prevent an outright war, the struggles are usually economic, and so the markets of Daggerfall are teeming with important goods and products, but the contraband floods the black market, and Thieves' Guild is very active in the city. Because of its strategic importance, the city is heavily guarded by both troops and fortifications alike. In addition to regular guards, There is a knightly order devoted to protecting the royal family. Edward's Mountain dominates the city's skyline as it was built around the peak. The ramparts hug the slope of the mountain and numerous watchtowers keep vigil for attackers. Wayrest began as a small fishing village on the delta of Biolsay River, established around the 8th century of the First Era. It remained rural and insignificant for the next 180 years until the First Orsinium was raised. Then when the Orc raiders with the lost with their city scattered, the caravans and traders started to pass through. The commerce proved lucrative enough that it only took Wayrest 120 years to become one of the largest cities in High Rock. Its location meant they controlled most of land trade between the province and the rest of Tamriel. Also, many shipments moving between eastern and western provinces would sail up the Biolsay River to Evermore and travel up to Farun or Jehanna to avoid passing through the Reach. North Point was founded around 100 years after Wayrest. It was established with a purpose to be a port city capable of resupplying, repairing and sheltering ships sailing between Sea of Ghost and Eltharic Ocean. The region of River Spire lacked such facility, forcing all vessels to risk long journeys between Farun and Daggerfall, or to travel by land and face the threat of orcs and were creatures. Local legends claim that a mysterious creature, Ithguleor, lurks along the coast here. Evermore is built on the banks of Biolsay River on the foothills of Druadak Mountains. The palace of the city was built with granite quarried and imported from Markarth on the other side of the mountain range. Its location is both a blessing and a curse. As you can guess, many shipments and caravans pass through the docks and the city gates. The trade and tax made Evermore a rich city, but that attracts unwanted attention. The city was built in 983rd year of First Era, when the majority of Orcish forces were eliminated from the area, but still, the lingering marauders would often make Evermore their target, as would Reachmen, who considered this land rightfully theirs. On top of that, any Redguard raid parties going north through Bankorai Pass would target Evermore rather than bigger and stronger Wayrest. As such, the city is fortified and guarded, but far from impregnable. Lastly, we have Jehanna, smallest and youngest of all the cities we have covered so far, as in the middle of Second Era it was nothing but a single pier east of Farun. It was probably built by trappers to cast off their boats, but most likely it had less innocent purpose, such as smuggling. In 300 years the pier grew into a city to rival Farun. It is a frequent stop for ships sailing from Solitude and other eastern cities. As mentioned before, territories belonging to High Rock also include Bethany, an island south of Daggerfall, and the Balfira Isle in the Iliac Bay, a group of small islands, the Sistris, in western Apsian Sea, although autonomous, were considered part of High Rock for most of the history.